man. You cannot marry a woman without gills. You're from two different worlds. Oh, I've wasted my life.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. And, you know, I am not completely fond of the current state of comic books. Are you shocked to hear that? Probably not. Not if you've been following the channel. I do try to find the diamonds in the rough and the good spots that I can go and highlight to everybody and say, here's a good comic, or here's a creator that's doing something cool, or here's something that is worth getting a little hope up for. But I always kind of feel bad for it, because we probably shouldn't be getting any hope for the comic book industry, at least like the mainstream comics. When I say mainstream, I'm talking about Marvel, DC, some of the bigger indie publishers, maybe like Image. Because I honestly don't expect anything to improve. Not anytime soon. You know, things have been heading down for quite some time. These things don't happen overnight, right? They don't happen in a vacuum either. They're things that kind of lead up to where we are today. And I think one of the biggest issues, and probably the biggest impediment for improvement within the comic industry, is there are no consequences. Now, consequences can be good, and they can be bad. When I'm talking about consequences, I'm talking about negative consequences. Now, if you do a good job or do good work at your job, you meet a deadline, maybe exceed it, and do better than your boss was expecting, you should get a positive consequence, like maybe a raise, some paid time off, something cool like that. But if you do a bad job, if you lose your company business, if you disparage your coworkers, alienate your coworkers, go out of your way to antagonize your customers, are just generally a hateful individual, you shouldn't expect positive consequences. You should expect negative consequences. Maybe you're put on probation. Maybe there's official paperwork put into your record as your boss kind of starts laying the foundation of why they're going to jettison your ass if you're at like a big corporation and HR mandates that kind of stuff. Or, you know, you get fired. Or you develop a reputation that is so disgusting that nobody wants anything to do with you ever again. Shunned. Stuff like that. It does happen to a certain degree, but for the most part, if you've been accepted into the clique, the club, if you were one of us, the comic creators union that they've decided that they have, which includes, you know, editors and whatnot, you're almost bulletproof. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to sell comics. You don't have to write good stories. You don't even have to be a good person. You can treat other people, your customers, your coworkers, anybody like absolute dog shit, and there will be no repercussions for it, for the most part. Now, if you're gosh dang it, who was the Star Wars guy? Chuck Wendig. And you can repeatedly break the rules, and they finally do have to do like sit you down, and you know, you're one of the worst writers in the world anyway. Maybe you get jettisoned, but he was never one of them anyway. He was an idiot. Those things happen few and far between. You look at Max Bemis, tells everyone to feast on his ass. Continues working at Marvel Comics. Now, he did leave Marvel, but he's still working in the comic book industry. You know, that's just the way it is. There's no way that we should ever let these idiots police themselves, because they're idiots. They're morons. And there are no negative consequences to doing a bad job or anything. I have some specific examples here that I want to lay out. I'm going to build my case. I don't want to just say it. You know, I want to spray it. You know what I'm saying? Don't just sing it, bring it, Wes. Well, oh, it's been brought in. That's all I got to say. Hooah! First up is example number one. Tom King. He actually killed Batman sales following Batman 50, the non-wedding, basically when they promised there would be a wedding, and then they pulled the rug out from underneath you. It caused a lot of comic shops. They encouraged them to go in and spend their own money to promote this big wedding. They leaked it into a publication that had nothing to do with comic books days before the book. Tank Cells had to make the comic book returnable. He continued on Batman for 35 issues. Now, you could say Wes. He didn't get to finish his Batman story. He was supposed to go to issue 107. I'll give you that. They did remove him a little bit early, but they still let him finish his story in Batman Catwoman on a prestige Black Label title with Clay Mann and Liam Sharp as the artist. What a punishment. Just think about what he did to Wally West in Heroes in Crisis. He literally assassinated that character. An entire generation's Flash. Destroyed. Sacrificed at the altar of Tom King's shitty writing. What were the repercussions for destroying Wally West and all the damage that he did in that story? He got a Rorschach story. The most beloved character in the most well-known, highly regarded comic story of all times. What a punishment for destroying a character and killing Batman sales. You know how hard it is to kill Batman sales? Tom King did it. He got Strange Adventures, not nearly as high-profile a project. Shockingly. Guess what he did to Adam Strange? Killed that character too. Now he's also got Supergirl, much lower profile, and he's also got the Human Target, but he's always got like a top-flight artist as well. And he was signed up to write the script for the Fourth World movie adaptation. Now that thing got canceled eventually. Thank goodness. But I'm guaranteeing he got fucking paid for it. Somehow Tom King and his shitty writing and his ability to tank sales on the most untankable character in the entire industry. And he just keeps getting opportunities. And that's not even to talk about what he did to Jay Lee, a fellow employee, who he threw absolutely underneath the bus for no reason because he didn't like that someone paid him to work. I didn't see Tom King going out there and be like, you know what, Jay Lee, you could use some supplemental income. How about I pay you to work out of my own pocket? He wasn't willing to do that, but he was willing to throw his own co-worker under the bus. A beloved figure in the comic book industry, something Tom King will never be. Next up, Exhibit B, Ta-Nehisi Coates gets the Black Panther gig. He's an essayist in the Atlantic. He's an opinion maker, a man of note. So they give him the Black Panther series. Guess what? It's quickly revealed Ta-Nehisi Coates can't write comic book stories. He can write opinions. He can bloviate. He can wax poetic for page after page after page of opinions, but he forgot that, well, maybe he never even realized this is an action-based storytelling medium. And he could absolutely not write comic book stories. And he also could not help himself but to incorporate all of his feelings, his politics, his ideology into the character and use Black Panther for that, which a lot of creators do within the big two. But a lot of those other creators can actually write a comic book story every now and again. They'll luck their way into it. During Ta-Nehisi Coates' first Black Panther run, which is beautifully illustrated and does a lot of world building, not exactly cited comic books. What does he get for those failed efforts? And you know, the sales were good to begin with. They did not last long. What did he get for those efforts? What kind of negative consequences did Ta-Nehisi Coates receive? He got a second run on Black Panther, who at that point was an even bigger character because the movie had come out as a billion-dollar franchise. And he got the keys to Captain America, who represents something that I would say, from what I've seen, Captain America, or Ta-Nehisi Coates, absolutely, you know, does he despise it? I don't know. He certainly doesn't appreciate what Captain America stands for. Yet they give him the keys to one of the flagship characters. Not an A-list character, because he doesn't always sell that well, but certainly the leader of the Avengers, one of the most prominent heroes in the MCU, and a character that you would imagine Marvel Comics would think was important. And guess what? He tanked sales on both runs. And what does that get him? So he's failed 3 times now. He's writing the Superman reboot for Warner Brothers. You did so shitty on Captain America. You drove readers away. You actually busted the threshold that had been set by the previous creators And it's not exactly like everybody loved Nick Spencer's run, right? Rick Remender before him. And he actually dipped below not only the threshold, which was set at 40,000, he dipped below 20,000. Shocking. Now he's writing the Superman reboot for Warner Brothers with J.J. Abrams. Positive consequences. Let's look at the X-Men Slack chat. X-Men, you know them, right? There's too many series right now. The sales have been tanking for most of the titles. They jettisoned Jonathan Hickman's vision for the future of X-Men, even though that's why people came back in to read X-Men long ago. Apparently, the X-Men Slack chat holds all the power. Leah Williams' X Factor, Jerry Duggan's Cable, both canceled due to abysmal sales. And I hate to put Jerry Duggan and Leah Williams into the same category because it's not fair to Jerry Duggan. He's not my favorite writer, especially on X-Men, but he's never done anything as bad as Extremis, okay? And he's never done anything as bad as X Factor. But Cable and X Factor were both canceled, poor sales. What kind of negative consequences did they get? Jerry Duggan is promoted and given the flagship X-Men reboot title. Now, you're going to say, Wes, you gave that a positive review. I did. It was better than it should have been. It's better than anything Jerry Duggan's written at in the X-Men line since he's gone there. But what he had done prior to that did not warrant that kind of promotion, in my opinion. Now, some people are going to say his Marauders kicks ass. I humbly disagree. Leah Williams, who did Extremis, one of the worst comics in modern history. I dare you to go read Extremis from the Age of X-Men story and see the Blob Psylocke ship. You can't unsee that stuff. Does not do a good job on X Factor. I'm not surprised X Factor didn't make it. Let's put that one out there. What is her reward for failure? Trial of Magneto miniseries. Certainly a promotion, a step up as far as visibility. There are no consequences for doing a bad job. There are no consequences for tanking sales. There are no consequences to killing heroes. There are only new opportunities within the comic book industry. And that's why things will never get better. If you're bad at your job, you don't have to get better. You can just be as bad as you were the day you arrived, and you'll still keep getting work. As long, as you're thought of in certain groups, maybe you check a few of the right boxes. There's no accountability. Now let's talk about somebody that's more blends the line of bad at their job, but also unprofessional. Heather Antos. If you go and check out her social media, you'll see that she continuously antagonizes customers. Not just her customers, all comic customers. Continuously. It's almost the only reason that she has social media, or at least Twitter. Sometimes she will promote a project that her company is doing. But for the most part, she's just talking shit to people that are supposed to be giving her companies money. So she's unprofessional. She's also notoriously a terrible editor. She did a very bad job when she was on the Star Wars line. Go back and find all the typos and all that stuff that were on there. She was actually questioned one time when one of her comic books was going to be released and if it had gone to the printers yet, and she did not know because she was too busy talking shit to customers online. Now, she was shown the door from Marvel, so there was a negative consequence, right? C.B. Cebulski did the right thing. She was hired at Valiant Comics. She was promoted to senior editor while she was there. From everything I'm told, she was just as bad at Valiant as she was at Marvel. And she's recently been hired at IDW to work on their Star Wars line there. You can go out and you can literally browbeat and talk shit about the people that are paying your salary, the customers, and there are no consequences. And you can be bad at your job and you just continuously get hired because, Richard Myers was a dickhead once. That's how it works. No consequences. Robbi Rodriguez. Think about this guy. Sent photos of his hairy rectum to fellow DC employee in mid-2018. That was on Twitter as well. There are children on Twitter that likely was following that certainly much higher acclaimed DC employee at the time, Ethan Van Sciver. I understand a lot of people don't like Ethan Van Sciver. At that time, he was certainly much less outspoken. He was still an employee at DC Comics. And really, you would have expected DC to kind of defend him. But I guess this is at the point where he's about to leave her anyway. So Robbi Rodriguez, the co-creator, I believe, of Spider-Gwen. But he created Spider-Gwen, so you got to keep getting him work. Sends pictures of his asshole to another employee. He still gets projects at DC Comics. He's the artist on an upcoming relaunch of Harbinger at Valiant Comics. Who do you think got him that gig? Could it have been Heather Antos before she left? I have a feeling it was. It doesn't matter how unprofessional you are. You can send nude photos on social media to a fellow employee, but as long as everyone else doesn't like them, it's okay. It doesn't matter. You can still work here. You can still get a premium gig on a relaunch of what is supposed to be a major title for Valiant Comics. You can be Robbi Rodriguez too, as long as you're in the right group, I guess, in the comic book industry. Last but not least, we will talk about the notorious Mark Waid. There have been people within the comic book industry that have done far worse things than Mark Waid. Put that one out there. We'll even talk. We'll talk about sort of one of them when we get to these details here. We do have the Berganza situation, stuff like that. But Mark Waid is a despicable human being. He's done numerous things that are just horrible, that you would never want to do to your neighbor, never do to someone that you worked with. You just wouldn't do it to another human being, whether you like them or not. Everyone in comic books knows that Mark Waid is a scumbag. When the owner of CrossGen, when CrossGen went under, Mark Waid didn't like him. Apparently they had some, they didn't have a great relationship. I guess there were occurrences where Mark Waid was on the ground, like kicking his feet, crying like a baby. When his business failed, Mark Waid sent him like some like black flowers. And the note, it asked, "What would your wife think of you?" Because she had just recently, I believe the previous year, she had died of cancer. That's a despicable human being. Everybody in the comic book industry knows that he did this. They don't give a fuck because there's no consequences. Because he's part of this little stupid comic book union. He's one of the team. You can do whatever you want. You can treat people in a disgusting manner all that you want. This is another one. This is another allegation that I've heard. I have it on authority. This is very true. That he had an affair with a fellow creator's wife. That fellow creator ended up murdering his wife upon hearing about it. That's the allegation. Which is terrible. And you're like, Wes, you can't blame that on Mark Waid. No, I can't. These things happen. Adults, extramarital affairs happen. It's what he did afterwards. He actually took the affair or the murder that happened and made a little comic strip joke and published it in DC Comics. Now, there were negative consequences for that one, because that's why Bob Harris said he would never work at DC Comics again. But he continued to get very high-profile gigs over at Marvel for years afterwards, and now he's working at DC again. That is what the comic book industry is. You can be the biggest piece of shit in the world, and there's no repercussions for it. You can do the worst job in the world. There's no repercussions for it. It just doesn't matter, and that's why comic books will never get better.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.